Plum Creek Church, and we are a place where you matter. Our mission here is centered around change lives, changing lives. We believe this happens through three important relationships: intimacy with God, intentionality with family, and influence with others. God has something He wants to say specifically to you wherever you are. Our hope is that you leave encouraged and closer to Him than ever before. We'd love to connect with you online at plumcreek.church or on social media to see how Plum Creek is impacting our community and what opportunities we have for you and your family to get connected. If you'd like to support the ministry we're doing here in Castle Rock, the two easiest ways are through the Give tab on our website or via your mobile device by texting any dollar amount to 720-606-5563. It's a secure connection with simple instructions to get set up. Thanks again for joining us today. We hope you'll enjoy this message.
Hey, good morning, Plum Creek. So glad to have you with us this morning. My name's Gary. I'm one of the pastors here on staff. Want to welcome those who are streaming with us live and use that as an opportunity to remind all of us that if you're ever out of town or maybe your child is sick, you can't come to church, we are live streaming on Saturdays at 4:30 and right here at 10 o'clock hour on Sundays. So make sure you join us when you're out of town, plumcreek.live. Well, if you're new to Plum Creek Church, welcome. We are all about change lives, changing lives, and we believe when you focus on three relationships, God, family, and others, that's going to change you so that you can then be used by God to impact and change the lives of those around us. So welcome. We're glad you're here. We'd love to have record of your visit. We know there's a lot of great churches here in town, so we count it a privilege that you're here, and we'd love to have record of your visit. This Next Steps card is in the seat back pocket in front of you, so take a couple of moments if you would, fill that out. And then at the very end of the service, you can drop these at the doorways. There'll be ushers holding some buckets there, and you can just drop the card there. You'll get an email from us and a phone call just asking about your experience. That's all that will happen with that. Something we do every weekend is receive an offering, and so many of you are already partnering with us together. We are using your finances and the gifts and the budget of our church to change lives here in Castle Rock and around the world. So thank you for partnering with us in that way. And if you want more information about how to give, there's a envelope in that same pocket in front of you. It explains all the ways that you can do that. But if you came ready to give, or if you get ready to give, you can drop those envelopes in the buckets as you're walking out today. Something we're super excited about is our building edition. If you've been around a while, you know about our Seeds campaign. We are just a few months away from breaking ground to adding an 11,000 square foot addition onto this side of our building. We want to bring back our kindergartners through fifth grade students from the school so that we can all be here together, and we're super excited about that. But if you are interested in finding more information about it, seeing some drawings, maybe you want to give or fulfill a pledge, or maybe you want to give some more, whatever it is, you just go to plumcreek.church/seeds, and all the information will be there for you. Well, as we end this series on relationships, we've been calling it Purple. We just want to encourage all the married couples here in our church to attend a marriage retreat in April. It's April 12th through 14th. It's called Do It Yourself. And we just are encouraging you to work hard on your marriages. And one way we're going to encourage you is to give some free tickets away. So take out your phone and you'll see the number on the screen. Just text that number. You'll be entered into a drawing, and we will respond to you via email, via text if you're one of the winners. And you can also find out all the details regarding that on plumcreek.church/events. Well, let's stand up again. We're going to continue to sing and lift up the name of our God.
Come on, church, are you ready to continue just to worship our amazing God today? The Bible says our God is able. He's able to do far more than we could ever think, more than we could hope, more than we could imagine today. I don't know if you come in here heavy burden today. Maybe you're facing mountains that seem too high, but our God is able. Let's declare it in this place. Come on.
God is able, He will never fail. He is Almighty God, greater than
spoke a word, you were singing over me. You have been so, so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You have been so, so kind to me. Come on, let's lift it up today. Holy, overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, and I don't deserve it. Still, you give yourself away. Holy, overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. When I was your foe, when I was your foe, still your love fought for me. You have been so, so good to me. Oh, when I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. Thank you, Lord. You've been so, so kind to me. Oh, and all the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, finds till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, and I don't deserve it. See you give yourself away. Holy, overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Yeah. Oh. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. Yeah. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Come on, declare that over your life today. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. Yeah. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Whoa, no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. No, no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming
endure that ancient cross. How precious is my Savior's blood. The beauty of heaven wrapped in my shame. The image of love upon death's frame. If having my heart was worth the pain, what joy could you see beyond the grave? If love found my soul worth dying for, how wonderful, how glorious, my Savior's scars, victorious. My chains are gone, my debt is paid. From death to life and grace to If heaven now owns that vacant tomb, how great is the hope that lives in you. The passion that tore through hell like a rose. The promise that rolled back death and its stone. Freedom is worth the life you raised. Oh, where is my sin? Where is my shame? If love paid it all to have what is all, how wonderful, how glorious, my Savior's scars, victorious. My chains are gone, my debt is paid. From death to life and grace to
Come on, if you feel comfortable in this place, just raise your hands in faith as we declare this together. Let's sing it out.
When I see that cross, I see freedom. When I see that grave, I see Jesus. And from death to life, I will sing your praise in the wonder of your grace. When I see that cross, I see freedom. When I see that grave, I see Jesus. And from death to life, I will sing your praise.
How wonderful. How glorious is your grace today. And it's by the blood of Jesus that we stand victorious in this place today. We stand as overcomers. Jesus, we thank you for your amazing grace. We thank you for your amazing love that chases us down. No matter how far we've run, there's no place that we can hide from your love today, God. God, I pray that your love would just overflow in this place today. That it would meet people where they're at, where there's brokenness, God. Would you mend? Would you heal? Would you restore? Would you redeem? We declare that we are yours as you call us your sons and your daughters, God. We declare that you are our Father today. Thank you for all you've done for us. And we just come to love you back with all of our heart, with all of our life today. Be exalted. In Jesus' name, amen. Aren't you thankful for his amazing grace today? Yeah. Well, good morning. How's everybody doing today? Man, that's so lame. Let's try that again. How are you guys doing today? All right, that's better. Well, so good to see your faces here today. So great, awesome to hear your voices. Thanks for worshiping with us. At this time, please be seated.
Good morning, everyone. How you doing? Can you help me say hello to those that are online real quick, watching us? Thanks, you guys, for joining us. We're glad you are. I've been praying about how to wrap up this series that we've called the Purple Series, talking about the life and death and power of our relationships, of our marriages, and our sexuality. And so here's where I feel led to go this weekend. So let me start it this way. I just want to mention a couple of names. O.J. Simpson, Tiger Woods, Robert Kraft. What do they all have in common? Scandal. Scandal. What is scandal? Scandal is an action or an event regarded as morally or legally wrong and causing general public outrage. What does that outrage look like? It's when you and I hear of a story like those that I've mentioned and we ask ourselves this question. I know you do, because I do too. How did that happen? Have you been there before? Where you hear the details and you're just, that just doesn't make sense. And I guarantee that those people that are involved in those situations would have been asking these questions. How did this happen to me? Where did I go wrong? How did this situation get to the point that it is? Why do I have to have my life end up like this? And as we've been talking about relationships and marriage and sexuality, the thing that I've been thinking about this week about where I want to go today is that the time to ask those questions is not after you've blown it, but rather it would be good to rewind from that before we bring disgrace and ruin upon ourselves, our lives, our families. The time to ask these questions is before we're ever faced with the temptation. So this week, I reread a story, perhaps you've read it too. It's a story, a crazy one, and a sad one about a powerful man that was groomed from birth to be a national leader. Early in his life, he embraced this calling, even set himself apart by decisions he made to live differently. Accepting this challenge, those difficult decisions then set him apart and were kind of his way of embracing his God-given calling. And very quickly, he became a significant national leader. And he was very recognizable. He was a handsome guy. And he was freakishly strong. And he was yoked. And I want to read you the story and tell you this story a little bit more. If you have your Bibles or your devices, you could turn to Judges chapter 13. And I want to start it with his mom and dad. His mom and dad were struggling to have children, and the Lord came and spoke to his mom and said this in Judges 13:5. You will become pregnant and give birth to a son, and his hair must never be cut, for he will be dedicated to God as a Nazirite from birth, and he will begin to rescue Israel from the Philistines. Now, it's really important for you to know where I'm going today to understand what this whole Nazirite thing is all about. And this is a vow that you would make sometimes for a season, and also for others, it's a vow that they would make for a lifetime. Set apart for God's work. And there were several things that this vow included, commitments that you would make. The first one is that you would never drink fermented drink. You're also not allowed to even drink grape juice, eat a grape, eat a raisin, or touch the skin or seeds of a grape. Just one of the things that you would commit to doing. You also would commit to not cutting your hair. And finally, you would make a commitment to never go near a dead body, human or animal, because that would make you ceremonially unclean. So jump down in the story to verse 24 of Judges 13, and it says this: When her son was born, she named him Samson. And the Lord blessed him as he grew up, and the Spirit of the Lord began to stir in him. You see, historically, if you know what's taking place in the history of the nation of Israel, they at this time had been dominated by their enemies. Oftentimes we read of this group of people in the Old Testament dominating the nation of Israel, and their names are the Philistines. And so I just want to share with you some of the accolades that Samson had, because this guy was legit. These are amazing stories. In Judges chapter 14, verse 5, it says this: As Samson and his parents were going down to Timnah, a young lion suddenly attacked Samson near the vineyards of Timnah. At that moment, look at this, the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him, and he ripped the lion's jaws apart with his bare hands. Hold it for a second. You might think you're tough. That's tough. He did it as easily as if it were a young goat, but he didn't tell his father or mother about it. Like, wait a minute. Hey, don't you like the parts of the stories of the superheroes where they somehow stumble upon their extraordinary strength or this skill set that they have that's beyond what is even humanly possible? That's exactly what happens to Samson. The lion comes charging towards him. I am in the fetal position wanting for my mom. Instead, he stands ready to fight, and as the lion gets close enough to him, somehow he has this thought go through his head: let me put my hands in his mouth. And then the Spirit of the Lord comes upon him with supernatural strength, and he rips this lion's jaw apart. Like, wow, that's just awesome. In his first fight, he killed 30 guys hand-to-hand combat by himself. And then at one point in the story, which I would encourage you to go back and read about Samson, the guy's just, he's legit. And he's also very creative. At this stage of the game, he decides that he wants to do something to get the Philistine people. So he goes about his business catching 300 foxes. I don't even know how you do that. After he's caught 300 foxes, he gets this idea that he could really wreak havoc if he would tie the foxes' tails in pairs. And not only tie them tail to tail, but he would also, in what he was tying, he would put a torch in there. So eventually, he lights 150 torches and is like, go get them, guys. And then, of course, these foxes start running, and pandemonium hits the Philistine people in their vineyards, in their olive groves, in their wheat fields, completely destroyed. So as the story continues, Samson's living in a cave. And the Philistines, as you could imagine now, are not very happy with him. Just pretty much destroyed their livelihood. And they're probably still chasing foxes that are tied together. So they're really frustrated. But the Israelite people are also panicked because the Philistines were dominating them. And now they were more concerned that it would even get to be a little more challenging to be an Israelite because now the Philistines are ticked. So 3,000, think about that for a second. 3,000 Israelites show up at the cave where Samson lives. And they're like, hey, bro. And he comes out like, like muscles bulging, And he's like, what's up, guys? They're like, we're pretty much in a bad place because of the fox thing. And so that's your fault. That's on you. And he's like, yeah, I know. That's great, huh? The foxes. And he said, I got an idea. If you guys promise not to kill me, I'll let you tie me up. And then why don't you take me to the Philistine camp and just deliver me to these people that are so frustrated with me? And they're like, great idea, because we don't have to mess with Samson, right? So they tie him up, and they take him to the Philistines. So I want to read the rest of the story to you because it's amazing. Judges chapter 15, starting in the second part of verse 13, we will only tie you up and hand you over to the Philistines, they replied. We won't kill you. So they tied him up with 2 new ropes and brought him up from the rock. As Samson arrived at Lehi, the Philistines came shouting in triumph. But look at this again. We've seen this already in his life. But the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon Samson, and he snapped the ropes on his arms as if they were burnt strands of flax, and they fell from his wrists. And he found the jawbone of a recently killed donkey. He picked it up, and he killed 1,000 Philistines. And then scriptures tell us that Samson tweeted, with the jawbone of a donkey, I've piled them in heaps. With the jawbone of a donkey, I've killed 1,000 men. That is incredible. This guy is amazing, and his accolades continued, and he was Israel's judge for over 20 years with all these amazing feats of strength. And when I was a child, I've got to tell you, this was one of my favorite stories. So I want to show you how I learned many of the Bible stories right here. This is my kid's Bible from when I was little. I had one this is actually Emily's, my sister. I can't find mine. But she brought it so I could show you. And there are pictures in this. They're amazing pictures. And I've got to tell you, there was just something cool about this story of Samson. Because, I'm just a little guy at the time, and mom and dad are reading the stories, and somehow it ignited in me this budding testosterone. And I was like, dude, in the picture, he's just legit. He's got muscles in places I didn't have places. And as soon as mom left, after we'd had her read the story a few times, it's like, get down and just crank out a few push-ups, right? Someday, I want to be tough like Samson was. Incredible story. But as we started, I was mentioning names like O.J. Simpson, Tiger Woods, Robert Kraft. And listen, the saddest part about this story is that you can add Samson to that list. It hurts to tell you this story, and I think it's better if we just read it. Judges chapter 16, starting in verse 4, sometime later, Samson fell in love with a woman named Delilah who lived in the valley of Sorek. The rulers of the Philistines went to her and said, entice Samson to tell you what makes him so strong and how he can be overpowered and tied up securely. Then each of us will give you 1,100 pieces of silver. The story continues in verse 15. Then Delilah pouted, how can you tell me you love me when you don't share your secrets with me? She tormented him with her nagging day after day until he was, look at this, nagging until he was sick to death of it. Finally, Samson shared his secret with her. My hair has never been cut, he confessed, for I was dedicated to God as a Nazirite from birth. And if my head were shaved, my strength would leave me, and I would become as weak as anyone else. Delilah realized that he had finally told her the truth, so she sent for the Philistine rulers. Come back one more time, she said, for he has finally told me his secret. So the Philistine rulers returned with the money in their hands. Delilah lulled Samson to sleep with his head in her lap, and then she called in a man to shave off the 7 locks of his hair. In this way, she began to bring him down, and his strength left him. Then she cried out, Samson, the Philistines have come to capture you. But when he woke up, he thought, I will do as before and shake myself free. But he didn't realize the Lord had left him. So the Philistines captured him and gouged out his eyes. They took him to Gaza, where he was bound with bronze chains and forced to grind grain in prison. I've got to tell you, this was a hard story for me to learn the details of as a kid. And it's still hard for me today. It's kind of demoralizing, isn't it, when your hero breaks your heart? I remember then, and I remember still now, when I read this story, you want to just shout through the pages of time to Samson and say, Samson, no, you're a hero. Don't do this. And as a young elementary kid, I could see what was coming. Samson, no, don't do this. Get out. She's no good for you. This isn't going to end well. Samson, please listen to me. Heroes don't do this. God's hand is on your life. You aren't done yet. What I want is page after page of stories being told of your incredible feats when the power of God comes on your life because God chose you. Because God called you. You're special. You're set apart. Samson, the story is not supposed to end this way. And so like those other names that I mentioned to you before, this is one just like it where we shake our head and we wonder, how? How did this happen? And I know that's exactly what Samson was thinking. I read a verse just a minute ago, Judges 16:20, and that's a verse that should keep you and I humble, that should keep you and I on our knees, that should keep us passionate about having true friends in our lives that aren't afraid to tell the truth and point out our blind spots. Judges 16:20, when he woke up, he thought, I will do as before and shake myself free. Look at this. But he didn't realize the Lord had left him. Samson was asking the questions, how did this happen? Where did I go wrong? Why does my story go like this? I want to walk you back through some things in this story, a couple of details that I purposely left out. But before I do, I want to remind you of this Nazirite vow that he took, to abstain from wine and fermented drink, to not cut his hair, and to not touch a dead body, animal or human. And as I've been looking at this story, what I have seen to be true in Samson's life and true of virtually every scandal we've ever seen is that the story never starts where it ends, does it? Like, we miss a lot of details that lead to the scandal. And so my main thought, I hope you're taking notes today, is this: it's not wise to compromise. It's not wise to compromise. So I want to take you back to the story. Remember the first story I told you where he kind of had his superhero coming out party when he ripped that lion's jaw apart? Let me take you back, because there's two powerful verses that I want to show you right now that I think are full, jam-packed full of truth. Later, when he returned to Timnah for the wedding, he turned off the path to look at the carcass of the lion. And he found that a swarm of bees had made some honey in the carcass. He scooped some of the honey into his hands, and they ate it along the way. He also gave some to his father and mother, and they ate it. But he didn't tell them that he had taken the honey from the carcass of a lion. Guys, listen to me for a second. That's where the scandal started. And in those two verses are a whole bunch of truths that we need to look at today. And the reason we need to look at them is so that you and I can avoid this scandal too. Are you ready? The first one is this. So he was returning to Timnah for that wedding, and it says that he turned off the path. And so this week, as I was thinking about, as we bring this series to an end about relationships and marriage and sexuality, the first thing that I want to say to you is this: stay on the right path. Stay on the right path, and that will mean something different to each and every one of us that are in the room. And I would guess that over the course of the last several weeks, likely as well, even longer than that, the Lord has talked to you about that. The proverb writer says this in Proverbs 14:12, there is a path before each person that seems right, but it ends in death. And I'm not sure what that means to you today, to stay on the right path, but I'll bet you if we had a chance to have a cup of coffee together, you could tell me what that means for you in this season of your life. In particular, as it relates to your relationships, as it relates to your marriage, and as it relates to your sexuality. Stay on the right path. The second thing that I see, remembering the commitment and the vow that he had made to be a Nazirite is this, and I want you to write this down. This jumped off the pages to me this week. Previous victory can easily become a place of defeat. Previous victory can easily become a place of defeat. You know why? Is because we let our guard down. And that's for someone here today. Perhaps there's been something that you have fought and fought well. There's some things that you've been working hard on to overcome, and if you're not careful, you can let your guard down. You become overconfident. And so today I want to remind you from this story to avoid a scandal that could come out in our lives. Previous victory can easily become a place of defeat, so don't get overconfident. Don't let your guard down. In verse 9, it says something interesting about what happened after he had gotten off the path and gone back to this place of previous victory and compromised a commitment that he had made. He didn't tell his parents where the honey came from, did he? Why would you guess that he didn't tell them? Because he would have had to tell the truth in saying that he had violated his Nazirite vow, right? So I need you to write this down. If you have to hide, stop what you're doing. If you have to hide, stop what you're doing. Again, the proverb writer wrote in Proverbs 28:13, people who conceal their sins will not prosper, but if they confess and turn from them, they will receive mercy. You see, there's something about authenticity embedded in the importance of this story. Perhaps for you, it's the click of a mouse or texts with someone that you shouldn't be that crossed the line. Or maybe it's dangerously getting closer to and perhaps looking forward to this kind of flirtatious relationship at work. Let me challenge you again today, if you have to hide, stop what you're doing, because it won't take you where you want to go. The next thing I see is that private compromise ultimately leads to public shame. Just ask Tiger Woods. Just ask Robert Kraft this week. Or ask Samson. They will all tell you that this is true. As a matter of fact, when Jesus was teaching in Luke chapter 8, verse 17, he said, "For all that is secret will eventually be brought into the open, and everything that is concealed will be brought to the light and be made known to all." Is this getting challenging yet? It has been for me this week too. So my challenge to you is this: please listen to your heart. Listen to your heart. And as is true with almost everything scandalous, the details that lead up to the scandal are exactly what cause the scandal. The story never starts where it ends, so it's not wise to compromise. There's something else that I see in this story that's very interesting to me. After Samson has violated his Nazirite law, have you ever done something and then just had it kind of nag at you? Like you can't shake it. It just continues to bother you because you know you did something you shouldn't have done. That's what happens to Samson here. And he makes this random bet with a bunch of guys, 30 of them actually. In Judges 14:12, Samson said to these guys, "Let me tell you a riddle. If you solve my riddle during these 7 days of the celebration, I will give you 30 fine linen robes and 30 sets of festive clothing. But if you can't solve it, then you must give me 30 fine linen robes and 30 sets of festive clothing." All right, they agreed. Let's hear your riddle. And I want you to hear what he says. Out of the one who eats came something to eat. Out of the strong came something sweet. What do you think is just simmering in Samson? It's a secret, right? It's bothering him. It's on his mind. Could it be that he knew that what he had done was wrong? Absolutely. It was in complete violation to a commitment that he had made. So I just want you to write this down, and I think it applies. I think it's part of the story. We don't know for sure, but don't ignore what's unsettling. Don't ignore what's unsettling. I believe as soon as Samson compromised, it started haunting him, and I believe that this happens to you and me too. It happens to all of us. And we need to learn to listen to our hearts, and we need to learn to trust God's promptings. You know, about the same time when my mom and dad were reading us the stories from our little children's Bible with the cool pictures. My mom also had a routine with us that we adopted as parents as well. My mom would say to us every day when little Dougie would head off to school, walk with the King today and be a blessing. That's what she would say to me. And so I decided when I had kids, I would explain that a little bit more by making them repeat some things back to me. So when the kids would leave, and many of you know this, I would say, well, walk with the King today. And guys, can you tell me what that means? And they would look back at me with their little eyes, and they would say, Daddy, that means you listen to the voice in your heart and you do what it says. Yeah. Friends, listen to me. Walk with the King today. And I believe you know what that means. You learn to listen to his voice. You learn to discern his voice. And you do what he says. Because he loves you. He won't steer you wrong. And the quicker you and I can learn to develop the habit of listening, responding, it will help us get out of trouble and avoid scandal. Walk with the King today. Is there something in your heart and soul that's been unsettling that he's been speaking to you about? Please remember this, guys. It's not wise to compromise. And then, I've got to tell you, this is where the story turns tragic, and this is just how compromise works. You head down this road, and eventually you do something absolutely stupid. And that's what Samson did. Before it becomes scandalous, Samson just loses his mind. You see, I skipped a few details of the story on purpose for this moment right now. It's this part of the story where Samson shares the secret of his strength with Delilah, and I left out that she had actually had several attempts before the one that led to the part of the story that I read. And so I want you to write this down. Number 6, compromise leads to foolishness. Compromise leads to, it makes you stupid. That's what it does. And some of you are like, oh, Doug, if you only knew. You are. Hey, everybody, listen to Doug right now, because you start compromising and you're going to do something really dumb. We know that's true. You've got to see what happens here. Again, Judges 16, verse 4, sometime later, Samson falls in love with a woman named Delilah who lived in the valley of Sorek. The rulers of the Philistines went to her and said, entice Samson to tell you what makes him so strong and how he can be overpowered and tied up securely. Now, I don't have time to walk through this whole story. I really do hope that you'll go back and read this portion of Scripture in Judges about Samson, but I just want to give you a few highlights, the main points. So she comes to him the first time and she says, Samson, you say that you love me, but I don't know what it is that makes you such a freak. Can you please tell me what makes you so strong? And he says, well, you know, Delilah, if I were tied up with brand new ropes, 7 new bowstrings that have not yet been dried, I would become as weak as anyone else. She's like, oh, make a note of it. Samson falls asleep. She calls in her counterparts, and they tie him with 7 new bowstrings. She wakes him and says, Samson, the Philistines are upon you. He snaps the bowstrings as though they're nothing, and he kicks some butt. Can I just ask you what normal people do at this point? Normal people think to themselves, Delilah's not very legit, right? But isn't this what compromise does to us? We start to get cloudy in the head. We don't think right anymore. So I know this is unbelievable, but this whole thing happens again. And she says, oh, Samson, you lied to me. I just want to know why and how you are so strong. And if you're a normal thinking person at this point, what are you thinking? The last time I told her, she did exactly what I told her would take my strength away. Maybe he's just getting too close to the situation. Perhaps he's becoming a little too overconfident, would you think? So he says to her, you know, this time, sweetheart, if you tie me up with some brand new ropes that have never been used, I become as weak as anyone. Get as close to the danger as possible, Samson. That's a good idea. So he falls asleep. She ties him up with the new ropes. She wakes him up. Oh, Samson, the Philistines are coming. And he looks down and he's got new ropes, exactly what he just told her. And he snaps those and he kicks some more butt. You'd think at this point, he's like, legit, I'm out. Like, I'm going to take my superhuman strength and I'm going to run back home. But he doesn't. Scriptures tell us that the third time around, she nags him again. And again, we're in our mind, through the pages of history. I want to yell at Samson, dude, stop. This is not good. She's really, really bad for you. But this is what happens with compromise. And so he says this, I don't even know where you get this idea, but if you were to weave the 7 braids of my hair into the fabric on your loom and tighten it with the loom shuttle, I would become as weak as anyone else. And then he has the audacity to fall asleep next to the loom. And she does exactly what he said would take his strength, braids his hair into the loom, tightens it down tight, shakes him the third time, wakes him up and says, imagine this, Mr. Strong Guy. The Philistines are here. Really? Boom, he snaps the braids off and he gets back to work. Now again, I know if it's you and I, we're going back to Match.com now. We're done. Delilah's out. We're posting bad reviews about Delilah, right? She's no good. Steer clear. She's messed in the head. She wants to take me down, right? That is not what Samson does. I know this is unbelievable. The fourth and final time, she nags him again, and he told her, and this is just next level. I mean, what do you think is going to happen, Samson? Like, really? Finally, Samson shares his secret with her. My hair has never been cut. And again, through the pages of history, we're like, dude, now you're for real going to tell her? You now are a complete idiot. Like, it's hard for me to even feel sad for you now. I just think to myself, as we do with all scandal, how did you get there? How did you get that stupid? What do you think she's going to do? My hair has never been cut. He confessed, for I was dedicated to God as a Nazarite from birth. Listen to what he's saying. If my head were shaved, my strength would leave me, and I would become as weak as anyone else. No, Samson, why are you doing this? It's not wise to compromise. Isn't that how we do? We think we can handle it. We think we won't get caught. Because compromise and justification are 2 best friends. And they cloud our thinking. And eventually we get to the point where we do something really stupid. Again, verse 20, he woke up and thought, I will do as I've done before and shake myself free. But he didn't realize that the Lord had left him. See, sometimes we forget where our strength comes from too, don't we? So the Philistines captured him and gouged out his eyes, and they took him to Gaza, where he was bound with bronze chains and forced him to grind grain in the prison. I just don't like this story. Former leader of Israel, former feared warrior, ends up in this place where his eyes are gouged out, and now he's running the mill with his quasi-strength to grind their grain. And then at a certain point, the Philistine people throw a party, and scriptures tell us that they were half drunk by now, and the people demanded, bring out Samson for our entertainment, because we finally got him. So he was brought from the prison to amuse them, and they had him stand between 2 of the pillars supporting a roof, and the temple was filled with people, scriptures say. 3,000 people were there that day, rulers and important people from the Philistine nation, and they were watching. Scriptures tell us that Samson was amusing them. Can I just tell you that one of the things that I've really liked about the focus of this series has been one of the main things that we've communicated week after week, and that's this. As the challenge has come, we just need to make a commitment from this point forward. Like, forget what's behind us and make a commitment today to do relationship, marriage, and our sexuality in a way that would honor God. From this day forward, we can't, the past is the past. Consequences, of course, are real. But from this moment forward, can we do this right? And as painful as this story is, there's this prayer that comes from the depths of a broken heart of a man who once was a national leader and a feared warrior. A man that understands what compromise and scandal can do to someone's life. And scriptures tell us that they brought him to the temple courts and they placed him between the two columns that were supporting the structure. And I want you to hear his prayer from the depths of his soul. And I want you to see the redemptive peace of our incredible God's heart. Samson is standing there, a mockery to all of these Philistines, and he prayed to the Lord. Now listen to this. Sovereign Lord, remember me again. Oh God, please strengthen me just one more time. With one blow, let me pay back the Philistines for the loss of my two eyes. Then Samson put his hands on the two center pillars that held up the temple, pushing against them with both hands. He prayed, let me die with the Philistines. And the temple crashed down on the Philistine rulers and all the people. So he killed more people when he died than he had during his entire lifetime. Look up here for just a second, guys. I don't know how the Lord has been speaking to you during this series. I know the things he's challenged me with. And we have a responsibility. And so as we wrap this series up, my challenge to you is this. Don't compromise. It's not wise to compromise. It leads us down a path that we don't want to go. And if we keep walking down the path of compromise, eventually that's going to lead to a scandal in your life. And you don't want it. You don't want that to be part of your history. And there's so much at play when it comes to our relationships and our marriages and our sexuality. And what we want more than anything else is from this very moment on to avoid the potential of a scandal. From this day forward. So I don't know where you're at, and I don't know, my prayer has been this week that this would save one person from scandal. If that would be the case, I would be so grateful. Lord, thank you. And you know who you are. It might be someone in this room right now. It might be someone that's watching online. And you know you're dangerously close to making some very bad decisions. And so my challenge to you, if you've begun to compromise, please hear from the pages of this story the importance of staying on the right path. Please don't become overconfident, because those places of previous victory can easily become a place of defeat. And right now in this moment, if you know there are things, behaviors, relationships, things that are going on that you have to hide, stop it. Because we know that ultimately private compromise is going to lead to public shame. So as the Lord speaks to you and he speaks to me, please don't ignore what is unsettling in your soul. Listen to him. Because eventually, if we're not careful, compromise will lead to very foolish thinking, and you're dangerously close of doing something very stupid. And most importantly, from this day forward, know this: it's never too late. It's never too late. Will you bow your heads for just a moment? Father, I know that this is a critically important moment for each of us that are in this room today. And I just ask that you would help us to know that this moment matters. And I thank you for the way, Lord, you've been speaking to us, each of us. Lord, I thank you for the way you've been speaking to those that are even watching online right now. And in this moment, we can feel, Lord, in our hearts what we know we need to do, how we need to respond. And Lord, we don't want our lives to be scandalous. We want to head in the complete other direction of that. And so I just ask today, God, that you will move through this room, that you will speak to those in the privacy of their home on the other side of a screen, And you will help us to understand and to know that you love us so much that you would speak to us in the middle of these spots where we're getting ready to make decisions, to go down a path that will only lead to disaster. So as it relates to our relationships and our marriages and our sexuality, Lord, will you help us to do this right? Will you help us to do this in a way that will honor you with the choices that we make? And Lord, regardless of what our past looks like, instead of looking back with a heart that's full of defeat, will you help us, Lord, from this day forward to make a decision to do our relationships, our marriages, and our sexuality in a way that would be obedient to you, a way that would bring honor to your name, in a way that would protect our relationships. Help us to walk with the King by listening to your voice and doing what you say. In your name we pray. Amen.
Can we just thank God for bringing such a challenging message this morning? So glad that you were with us today. If you did bring an offering, you can drop that in the buckets, as I mentioned earlier, at the doorways as you leave. Next weekend, we start a brand new series called Gold from Golgotha. We're going to be talking about the things that Jesus said while he was dying on the cross. So make sure and join us next week. You guys have a great rest of your day. If you need prayer for anything, we'll have some of our prayer team up front. We'd love to connect with you. We'll see you next weekend.